Yeah, I didn't think so either. Uh, how do I turn on my camera? Hi. Hey, what's up, y'all? I wonder, I mean, it's on YouTube, so like maybe I can do it like this, where hey, Diara, can I like screen share, allow, but actually maybe I want like a window. I'll go on here, this Wii Party Track 002 from the main menu. That's all I'm really saying. How's everybody's Saturday going? This screen. It's now sharing. Bring the share here. But I'm gonna have it like this. Yeah, it works. All right, we're gonna give it like, a couple more minutes. I already got 8 people in here. All right, cool, cool, cool. Uh, let's make sure. Okay, and we're also live on Twitch. Shout out to the shout out to the people tuning in from Twitch. The weight is too nuanced, not nuanced enough. And you see, that's the nuance trap. You know what? I got someone that can talk to us about that actually. I got someone who knows exactly about nuance traps. Please, please give it up for the illustrious. I don't have my soundboard because we're on Restream, which is a crime. But I wonder if y'all can hear. I hope y'all heard that. Give it up for the for the illustrious, the indomitable Elliot Sang.
Hello.
Wow, perfect with the audio too,
Oh, really?
man. Yo, Ludwig who? We really about this life.
This is us. This is what we do. This is what you do, really. I have no idea how to work
Uh,
these things.
I mean, you out there, you out there being a good man with a podcast too. I saw you with Witch and Monk. Is
Yeah.
that your little channel? Y'all channel is cute. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited. We might record today. It's not been easy to keep consistent doing anything, especially because there have been
Type
life
shit.
disruptions and all that. But yeah, having a podcast is fun.
Mm. I literally just saw this video. Do you follow? I think her name is like Daisha Sade.
Yeah.
Yeah. She literally an hour ago or 2 hours ago now just put out a video called it was basically a video about whether or not maybe more men should do podcasts.
Ooh.
And like I honestly want to make a response video to it now because I didn't expect myself to feel so emotional the more I thought about it. Because
Wow.
there's like one part of me that's like everything she said was true. And the other part was I was like, bro, but I said that in 2022, and then y'all made TikToks about it. And I know that means I'm not the healthy type of man that needs to be making those podcasts yet, because I'm still a little bit vindictive, but I'm also like, I think that really might be the new wave. Uh, Chat messages are late. All right, let me have this open on my other one then. All right, but let's get into this week's empathy hour. Empathy hour where we talk about feelings. Nuance optional. Uh, so first of all, I want to since it is the empathy hour, I have to know, Elliot, how are you feeling? How are you feeling today?
I took a hydroxyzine last night, and those things really calm you. And then I slept like a baby, and so today I'm feeling like a little bit sleepy, a little groggy. But I feel good. I feel as though the weather has gotten a bit better than it was. The heat waves have been gnarly, to quote Cat's
You ain't.
Eye.
Oh my god. You ain't.
Um,
Cause
and
you're in Michigan?
yeah, I'm currently in Michigan.
Okay, because like that's supposed to be like y'all get cold, right? Like you're nowhere near the Dixon line, even though Michigan is East Coast.
Right.
I guess it's like the Mid East. What do you guys call yourself?
Yeah, we would go with Midwest,
Midwest. Okay.
Mid East. You could say Mid East. Um, and we're in the southern part of Michigan, so it's warmer down here. But yeah, it's not supposed to be this hot. I mean, I was in your crib. I was in well, I was close to because I was in DC for like a day or two, making the trip back, and it was like prime heat wave in
That
DC.
yes, like the DC heat is always bad because it's a concrete city or it's a concrete
Yeah,
jungle. So like there's nothing absorbing it.
no,
But like I'm literally not even 3 minutes away from DC. And this might be the I don't have a watch on my wrist. This this is the second day we finally had under 90-degree weather. Like the entire last week we had 97. And what's crazy is because I just came from Nigeria last week, or not last week, last month. And it's funny to me now because I'm like, there are heat. Unfortunately, there is nuance to heat
yeah,
because like when I was down there, it was also 99, 95, like steady,
yeah,
but there wasn't the humidity
no,
that happens. And also there was plenty of trees. And like
yeah,
to be honest, I bet like natural things that was soaking up the sunlight. But yeah, it's like you hate walking outside and it feels heavy to walk outside. That don't seem normal.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm thankfully in an area where there are a lot of trees, so the heat does kind of, it does help with that. But there is humidity in Michigan because we're so close to the Great Lakes, because we're in Lake Michigan and
Facts.
everything. So at the same time, yeah, the humidity was crazy on the East Coast. Like I was in New York for a bit. Humidity was crazy there. Rain was just wild. It was raining every day. So, wacky weather year to say the least. And with all of that, you just kind of get in this little lull mentally where you're just kind of like,
That's
I'm just gonna,
true.
like
Yeah.
soak up some AC. I'm just gonna hit the bed.
Your body literally trying to recover.
Yeah,
Okay. Um the second question I have for you, Elliot, and this is a class participation question. So class, I want you to also answer this. Give me your least nuanced take.
my least nuanced take.
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna take a second
Please take your time.
because I have a lot of
Chat fill in.
I have a lot of ones that are like not nuanced. Um,
I'm trying to think of like three off the top of my head. Like I have one. Like I want you to go first. I have one, and now as I think of more, I'm like, actually,
yeah,
because I don't be on Twitter anymore. Now that I'm not on Twitter anymore, I feel like I've lost the muscle to do that thing where
the
you
hot take
like
thing.
what yeah, but also where like every time you say your opinion, you have to make like 50 concessions afterwards,
Right.
like in order just to finish the sentence.
Exactly. Now you could just let it go. I'm I'm currently working on something about like, I'm big on like generational discourse. I'm big on like
Like millennial versus Gen X, like
yeah,
Gen
that
Z
kind
things.
of
Okay,
thing.
okay, cool.
Yeah, and my least nuanced take currently is that Gen X specifically is like not okay. Like specifically, like compared to, like, I know none of us are like, okay, let me not nuance it. Um
It's so
Gen
hard.
X specifically are like antagonism levels of not okay.
I mean, listen, just like that Subway guy, 100% agree. Like honestly, only because as a millennial, because I know both millennials and like I know millennials aren't good, and I can see that Gen Z people aren't good. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not a flash in the pan. All this, what's that thing called when like it's progressive, progressive in
Right,
the wrong way.
right.
Especially because I often think about how we do. That's why I brought up Gen X people. Like we often do forget we have very little cultural analysis of Gen X people. Shout out to Tim Nichols that like did a video on that. Hey Denai. Um, but like when I uh both watching Tom Nichols' video and then a CNN documentary on the same topic, I was like, Gen X people are not that like their experiences weren't that different from millennials. They look like they were actually like the first guinea pig for the being left alone type of thing, the having
Mhm.
to like make your own fun and community. Um, and they look like they were also the first generation to have parents that were, that had yeah, they were the first. They were really the first generation where they were making a bit less. Like it wasn't a deficit yet, I believe, but they were making a bit less than their boomer parents or their silent generation parents because of Reaganism.
Right,
So
right.
like when you really start looking at like everybody's just been getting a bit worse. But Gen Z, because I have two younger sisters and they're both Gen Z. Uh, I talked about this on the live on Tuesday that I hear my sister she's at Duke, she's a junior at Duke, talk about her job prospects. Mind you, she's like the smart one in the family, like full ride, like like was doing local politics and shit at like at the school board level, and she's just like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether or not I want to
Burger
make
King or
80K.
Starbucks.
No, not even that. It's more existential. It's like I don't know if
Right,
I like want to make like 90K doing this nonprofit work that's working with this educational reform policy that I really admire and is under this mentor that I like, or because of my grades, should I do what my friends are doing and go Goldman Sachs and make 250 straight out?
right.
Because ultimately, like this is all a scam, and like I feel like I want to get all my money as quick as possible, so that like maybe I can do something different, or is that all? Like she's asking me, is it a trap? And I'm like, as a person who also went corporate straight out of school, like any person who's had to go, who's done a professional type of degree and like had to go straight corporate, you're like, what your parents had to deal with and what you have to deal with is so vastly different that like
Yeah.
the way it breaks down your spirit is something they don't understand how much that impacts you, because at
Yeah.
least when they were having to go 9 to 5, they could get, they knew a house was at the end of it. They like were positive, right? They were positive this was paying rent. They were positive. They were like, I'm really am working for something. And now it's like, I still got to work for rent. I still got to work for food, but I
Yeah.
have no guarantee of owning anything at the end of it. So like, why would you then work?
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me get Kelly. I highlighted this really because I wasn't going to let this go. Kelly Mark Zuckerberg. Luckily this is on Google, so I feel like I can actually put this one on the platform. Y'all kind of wild though.
Exactly. I have my specific Gen X baggage. I do think that there's a specific thing going on with their brains. From like I think they're at like a lot of them are like in their 50s, like early 60s. Um, and there are things that have happened to their brains. It's like a combination of the lead poisoning,
Mm-hmm. Which we
several
don't talk
different
about enough.
technological advances, which we don't talk about enough. Several technological advances, several different existential threats, and a lot of them are immigrants. Like, yeah, the immigrant Gen Xer thing. It's just like I'm lucky. Like my mom, the only crazy stuff she does is like the vitamin injections and stuff like that. Like it could get a lot worse, right? And
That's
then
fair.
like a lot of different takes that just don't make sense and all
Mm-hmm.
that. Not able to keep track of anything, but like the work also, like you put 35 years, 40 years of your life into just constant mental push to succeed, and like the clocking in, clocking out over and over again without the like retirement. Like I watched a little bit of this documentary last night, Harlan County, USA, which is about like labor strikes among the coal miners in Appalachia and in
Mm.
Kentucky. There's a scene where the protesters are in New York City, and they're talking to this police officer in New York City who's like, yeah, like basically said to like, retire at 36. And I just don't
Go
understand like how people like we're now in a position where people are just like, I'm 70, I got a couple more years in me, and then like maybe, and so it's just like there's no way your brain is healthy. And like what Terp says
Right.
exactly, like how can you ever take accountability if you're in that level of wear down? And then your kids are over here talking to you about like,
Like
yo,
you're,
like we
yeah.
need we need
Mm-hmm.
liberation for real.
Mm-hmm. No, okay, yeah. I actually, yes, I like where that point ended up, because like you're literally in survival mode.
Yeah,
Like I think I just saw this reel the other day that was like, a mood that you linger on too much becomes like a temperament that you get stuck in too long becomes a personality, and
yeah,
and then a personality trait becomes like your persona or whatever. And it's like that really hit me, especially when we think about our own parents, where it's like, both my parents from Nigeria. My father really very much embodies an American dream type esque journey. Right, came here, really got super sized, or oh wow, whatever. Y'all don't need to know about the lingo, but like got super saved. There we go. By Reagan giving amnesty, and then like worked himself up from not knowing English to working in state government. Uh, in order to do that, in order to break down all the, like, none of that was easy.
no,
But so he literally has survivor's bias, where he's like, I don't understand
yeah,
why people just don't work harder.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
like, well, like, because I did this, like, clearly the amount that I had to, well, the amount that he doesn't realize that he might have had to cut off his soul. My dad is speaking of like 70 and getting more years. My dad is retiring this year in October.
yeah.
He's gonna be 68.
Wow,
He'll be 68, and like he chose more years. Like truly, my dad's an accountant, by the way. Truly, because he like, I don't know, he didn't know what else he was gonna do. He was
right.
like, I mean, we have enough money, but like I'm trying to plan my next move. He started buying all these. He started buying all these books. I saw 48 Laws of Power. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
brother,
I
my
had to
mom
step
got
in.
that one.
I had to step in. But I was worried, and I'd be worried about him, because I'm like, yo, do you not have hobbies? Because sometimes do you ever think about the way that you are? Well, I guess I don't know how close you are with your parents, but like you think about like your personality and like what you do by yourself and how that might be inherited from your parents. You ever think about that?
Yes, absolutely. I've been dealing with those demons lately because like
Right.
my brain is just not capable. It's like my body's not built for the situations that my dad developed that like rampant anxiety over. You know,
It's a new world. We were given faulty OSs, but I
bad
think about how,
OSs.
right. I think about how like okay, I'm a person who likes to collect hobbies, and I'm also a person who like likes to like think deeply about things. I attribute both of those things really directly to my father. And
Hmm.
so, but he's always been working. So I'm always like, but you know, he's working. I see a book in his hand. He's working, but he'll always watch the news. He always got something to say about the news. And now as I come back to him, I'm like, okay, cool, Dad, you're about to go retire. Like what's next? He's like, yeah, man, I think I'm gonna relax, start selling real estate.
Oh,
You know,
brother.
my gonna start another business in Nigeria. I'm like, that's not like, do you golf? Do you play tennis? And he's like, I don't like sports. I was like, do you like
Walk.
movies? He was like, I like war movies. And I
Yeah, of
was
course they
like,
do. They always love war movies.
they always
Gen X
do.
men, Gen X men specifically are in a terrible spot. Terrible spot.
Well, I mean, like, it's nuanced. Okay, I
It
realize we're
is.
getting.
Now we're getting
um.
nuanced.
Okay, hold on. Oh yeah, I did want to give. Let me see. Anybody else? Y'all stop giving
Opinions.
y'all least nuanced takes. I still wanted to hear more, but I know, like, on a serious note, honest, my first one was the serious one where I was like, my least nuanced take is that we can print money, but that comes from like right like I come from an MMT background, like I like modern monetary theory, and that's all I can say because then it would just get nuanced. But like in a
Yeah.
sense, once I realized like us in America, like someone, not me, but someone could print money, you start hearing any other economics debate, not like as nonsensical, but just totally different. And I hate that I'm not allowed to say, which is why I asked the question. Don't I hate that I'm not really allowed to like speak my truth
Yeah.
when I gotta be like, look, guys, the government is complaining about a deficit, like we don't got McDonald's money, but like we actually quite literally have McDonald's money.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
We're not on a gold. We're not even on a gold standard anymore. But even gold itself is
that's how much
monopoly
clout
money.
we had. That's how long
Like
we've been able to print our own money. That like
literally.
one white guy was like, "Hey guys, I was looking at this gold shit." I'm talking this way because I also just finished watching an episode of of The Sopranos, and I'm like, what I have to
Hey.
imagine was Richard Nixon on some like Tony Soprano shit, being like, "Listen, I'm looking at the terms of this agreement, and I simply cannot abide. You know, family is really the true currency. Like, what
Yeah.
is money?
Mm.
But people." And they said,
Mm.
"What the fuck are you talking about, Dick?" And they said, "Okay, anyway, we have nukes, so
Yeah.
we'll now you guys would just you guys would trust me."
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, okay, but why are we talking so much about nuance? It's because about a week and a half ago, you did a video called "Nuance is Bad Sometimes,"
Mm-hmm.
and my question to you, first and foremost, truly is okay. I'm sharing my screen. Um,
I'm gearing up.
what made you dive into this topic? Also, why do you hate Nuance? Did he steal your girlfriend?
So Nuance has never taken a girlfriend from me. Because I don't really like get girlfriends stolen from me. It's just not a thing that's happened.
Not a
Um, but Nuance, um, I think Nuance has robbed a lot of like energy and essence from me. Um, and the thing that's on screen right now in terms of that part of the video is the title of an article that I also talk about in the video,
mhm.
that I censored the video on.
By Kieran Healy, correct?
Yes, the sociologist Kieran Healy, and it's an article that I came across some time ago, and I was like, this is really interesting because there's a great deal of discursive like sidewinding that happens. There's a great deal of like just dismissive tactics that people use in discourse to never have to like shave like move from their positions and to never have to like think of themselves as people that have to switch how they behave or their worldviews at all, because they can always turn to some sort of conception of nuance and say like, well, you know, there's also this. So like a classic
Right.
example is like,
Mhm.
protests and things like that, and people nuancing like, blockages of roads that are a classic part of demonstrations and marches, not marches, but of like direct action
Mhm.
demonstrations, and people being like, but what about if somebody's trying to go to work and they really need to go to work and then you're blocking them off? Like, isn't that like terrible? Like, don't you actually hate those people more than we do? And
Mhm.
these are the kinds of little nuanced traps, which is what Kieran Healy talks about in his article, and which I center my video on, that
Which we'll definitely get
allow
into as we get
exactly
through the
they
video.
bog us down
Yeah.
essentially.
I think yeah, I don't know. You definitely point towards the video. I don't know if you say it directly, but there's this paradox of nuance in which nuance, like we have a connotation in our head of nuance increasing clarity, even though
Right.
way more often than not it like obfuscates, right?
Yeah.
It people it's almost like actually turning up the clarity like in Photoshop or like in Canva, whereas like if you push it too much, if you try to get every exception, try to get every detail in there, now you don't get a clear picture at all. You just get you get the binary code, just a bunch of ones and zeros, and it's like, oh, my human brain can't make anything of this,
Yeah.
which for some bad actors is the point, right? Because you get like the win for them is being like, okay, I'm tired of talking about it. Then like you've exhausted my actual mental capacity, so now I just have to usually let the status quo be the status quo.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, nuance is often obfuscating. Obfuscatory is the word that I use, which is a real chewy word. Um, because well, that's the word that Healy uses. Because yeah, exactly what your point is. There's some you have to at the end of the day put forth ideas that are clear and understandable and that are insightful. And there's a certain level of nuance you can arrive at, especially when we're not having strictly academic discourses or
exactly.
whatever.
Because this is
That
all a very like logocentric, like academia type or like paradigm that we're following, I guess I would say, right? Like even this idea that like your ability to orate the most complexly and um uh, the most thoroughly as being some sort of like principle of virtue, like that really only ever mattered in academia, and that was a subjective choice in and of itself, like
yeah.
any other place, right? As a person who went to business school, but got a writing minor, like I had one half where it was like, oh, write 10 pages and make sure you, for a good reason, like use your research, or like show the breadth and depth of your research. And then when I then when I went to actual work, they were like, if your email is more than 300 words, you better just call me, bro. Matter of fact, listen, if your email is more than 100 words, shorten it down to 50 and send it to me on Microsoft Teams. Like
Yeah.
you need to communicate quickly and in a way that really incites interest. I really want to touch on that more. But do you want to hop in the video?
Yeah, actually, why don't we hop in the video? Because
Yeah.
I do say a lot in
Yeah.
it.
Right.
I'm just saying I can't hear the video.
And I'm trying to put up.
Let me see if they can hear it.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I can't hear the video.
Oh wait, you can't hear the video. Oh.
No.
Chat, could y'all hear the video? Oh my god,
Oh no!
bro.
You
Then
went a
what's
couple
the?
minutes there too. I mean, we could just skip the video if anything because
We are
we are already
already
dipping
into it.
into it. Yeah, but there's some stuff there that's important. That that was good to see at least. I read the subtitles, so that
Yeah.
was.
Shout out to subtitles. That's so weird though, because I mean, I'm sharing
Also, I
this
want to
with.
ask Turb about the message they left saying she's scared of the water with a gator emoji. I would
I
like an explanation for what that
I
means.
I had also saw that, and it's funny because we were also talking about generations at the same time, and I
Yeah,
was kind of like, you know what? Maybe that's just me being.
a little too old.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a bit too old, and I just might have to take the L on it.
We're too cuspy. I feel like this is like a very this
Cuspy? What
is
is that?
we're
Oh wait. Oh,
too
okay. No, no, no. I figured out
yeah
now.
we're too cuspy.
That's how I know that I'm not too old yet. You know,
Yeah
where I'm
yeah yeah.
like,
There's
okay,
no
as long as
cusp.
I can figure it out.
Yeah, I can piece certain things together, but I can't piece she's scared of the water together. I'm interested though. If I might use it. Um, that
Oh
said,
yeah. Okay.
uh, I feel like yeah, the points I'm trying to get at when it comes to nuance, and like there's a certain way that we look at nuance as like almost like essential, and like necessarily good, like like good as such that I
A good
think
in and of
holds
itself. Yeah.
exactly that holds us back from like understanding what the real use of knowledge and education are, which is not just like endless detail upon endless detail, but is insight, right? Like as Healy says, it's not about instead of just acknowledging complexity, it's about cutting through it. And so a lot of what I try to do when it comes to my work that I think doesn't even necessarily come across all the time, but I try to make it come across is that like I'm trying to make different points from the ones that other people are making. And I'm trying to make the points that I think are the most clear. Like if everybody's saying, like Trump is a fascist, and I can kind of agree with that. I can agree with that and say like I want to contribute to the discourse. I want to say a point about it that I think is clarifying. I
Right.
don't want to just be like, hey, it's nuanced actually, because fascism is da da da. But I
Because
want
you
to say,
haven't even offered an example of the nuance, right?
right,
That offers a yeah, a thought that we can actually parse out so we can get towards an actual deeper or at least common understanding.
yeah, exactly. I might want to say, you know, I might want to talk about Clara Matte's book and the idea of liberalism and austerity, caught like being one in one with like hand in hand with fascism, like paving the way for fascism, building the road for fascism, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that's something that you can say that's equally like levels of nuanced. That's different from just saying also like um, it's different from just saying also like conservatism or right wingers are necessarily fascist, um, and saying something that's a little bit different but is actually I think a little bit clearer without being like actually it's very complicated, you know.
I'd also uh not to not to both sides of it, but maybe like to sprinkle maybe dialectical materialism in there to
Yeah,
say that just in the way in which we all strive for like some for the clearest meaning, right? We're always trying to get to pure communication or pure thoughts. There's also a lot of use in the fact that first of all, like we can't do that, right? So like how our linguistic system ends up working is that as we all try to get to our rarefied pure thoughts, we all create like a catalog of different ways of saying the same thing,
yeah,
right? And like that's the important that's the useful part of communication, but of discourse. Sorry, is really what I'm trying to say, right? the reason why I might watch 5 different videos on public transportation being inadequate is like not because I didn't understand it the first time, but like there's a bunch of different ways. Like it is pretty new because it is pretty nuanced why public transportation sucks in the West. Like there's a bunch of different ways to articulate that actually make it easier for me to talk to different people to get them all to the same common understanding that we all can agree this thing sucks and changes. But in like the mainstream world, the easiest or the quickest or the common thing to do is just say it sucks because complicated reasons.
Mhm.
And we kind of just got to leave it there because our sponsors would get really mad if we started being any more specific than that. But then people sort of take that as like, I think we're both really going is that when somebody takes the actual brave charge to be like, okay, but like I'm gonna take an actual stand here and be like, this is why, this is a clear reason why I feel this way on this specific subject. Now they're like, okay, well, you lose debate because you didn't you didn't take in all the exceptions. You didn't follow the rules, my guy.
Right.
Foul. 2 shots.
Right. Right. And I think people are also they're very hypocritical about that because everybody is shortening their thoughts. Everybody is making assumptions. We like to all believe that we're operating with all of the facts, but there's no way to just factor in all of the facts because we can't possibly have all of the facts. What we do is use the facts that we're able to find, and we try to create and synthesize thoughts that are actually useful based off of the facts that we know and based off of the experience that we have, etc., and try to do something that's going to generate something positive or generate something um, that aligns with our worldview, right? Because thoughts, we express our thoughts for reasons, right? We
Mm-hmm.
don't just have opinions
Well,
to be
most of us.
correct.
I've been
Well,
on
we would
Twitter,
think
man.
so, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Dang, and then the bots, but like we're not gonna go down that. We're not gonna.
And then the bots, and then the bots. A lot of us do operate like bots, though, right? Because we are trying to constantly think of ourselves as like living in the objective and living in the ultimately verifiable. And at the end of the day, like
So I'm about to get to this.
by
Put a
it,
pin in this.
yeah, let's put a pin in that. Um, we sometimes forget our personhood and our humanity and our actual reason for speaking and expressing things because we're so caught up in conceiving of ourselves as correct and just trying to get our correctness across to other people. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So instead of me teaching you some political education because I want you to have a positive impact from that and or answer join an organization or like change the way you behave in a certain way for the better. I'm teaching you political education and I'm doing so to impress upon you that I am correct and you're wrong and then you need to be correct now, you know.
I feel like a lot of that might. Hmm, yeah, I have 2 bifurcated reasons for why I think that might proliferate because like one's cultural and then one's economic. Like I do think that because through so many fuck ups on our end, being an influencer is like uh not even an aspirational career. It's kind of just like it's an accepted mode of commodification, right? It's like a thing that people understand that you could always do. Like there becomes this need to acquire influence through being correct, right?
Yeah.
And like so you get this wave of people who are like, I mean that is what debate bros are, right? Like they eat off of the idea of like, okay, if I can prove them right, I build up a sort of um ethos, I guess, or like reputation for that's a fallacy of some sort, but I'm not smart enough to remember it. But it's like, hey, if I'm right about this, I'm gonna write about other stuff. Hey,
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson has entered the chat. Um,
Yeah. I think it's like appeal to authority.
right, thank you. But then on this other side, I'm wondering. So the question that I have for you is like, do you also feel maybe on the more normal side of things in the way that we do this in our everyday lives? Is it possibly like a fear-based response, right? I think about this generationally too. This idea of being so afraid to be wrong that we have caked in an expectation of like, okay, this person is going to expect me to be nuanced. So like if I do not meet, because if we're being super fair, that's actually what we're always negotiating. Like the amount, how short or long my thought is the amount of like nuance or information context that I think you need to get my point. So like if we looked at it from that sphere, it could be people we're living in a low trust society where people don't trust each other to have their best interest or to apply good faith to them. And so they're like, okay, I must think of all exceptions or else I or going back to the point, or else I lose.
Right.
Which yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, first, that most of our responses are fear based to some degree because
Mm,
we exist in societies to um, to negotiate through the things we fear. Right? It's a matter of safety and validation. Now, aside from that, like that ultra woke point, um, I would say that we are definitely. I definitely think a lot of the people who hyper focus on being correct do so out of some degree of fear that they their education and their worldview, and then thus the way that they have conducted their own lives based on that worldview, are invalid in some way or need to be changed in some way, right? And so being incorrect is not an option for them, which fully makes you anti-intellectual, frankly, because intellectualism, I think, is premised on being curious. I think you're not a smart person, quote unquote, unless you're willing to be corrected, unless you're willing to be educated, unless you're willing to make yourself open to interpretation, to change. And yet most people, especially when you see in social media, and you talk about those the stakes, about the stakes that we have in social spaces, especially when it comes to building social media platforms, um, what people are doing is just presenting something that validates them.
mm-hmm,
They're presenting their arguments in ways that validate them, that make it so that they can bring people on board to follow them, to support them, and that perhaps most importantly prove that they are on the right track. Because there's very little
mm-hmm,
reason to
mm-hmm,
share your
mm-hmm.
opinions, especially online, if there's not something like some sort of goal that you're trying to reach, right? Sometimes we can just to talk, but a lot of the times there are still intrinsic goals with what we're trying to get across implicitly. um but a lot of the times you see how people share their opinions, their hot takes, and you can look at it like,
Hi Fatima.
what hi Fatima, you can look at it like, what exactly are you trying to do here, right?
Yes. Thank you. I ask that of so much media that I see, not even like just so much when of in conversations that I hear, and like sometimes like even interpersonal ones where like I have to stop and I have to be like, okay, you said a lot of things, but I'm like, okay, but what did you want to communicate to, like, what were you trying to get me to do?
Right.
And it's kind of crazy. I don't know if that's a neurodivergent thing or just like a mismatch of like cultures, but it's weird that it feels taboo to often say that. Like really, to our point, that might be the fourth nuance trap right there. Like the idea that like you can't. Um, Sometimes we are so enamored with our own rhetoric that you're like you said, you're talking really just to self-validate, but also on the other side you might get rewarded for it because I'll be honest, sometimes I'll hear somebody say something and like they just said it very nicely and I'm like, man, I love the way that thought came together. I don't quite understand the thought, but like I want to give this person a compliment, so I'm like, man, I really enjoy I really enjoyed this thought. But it could have been, but I never tell them it could have been clearer. Um, but this is sorry, I kind of lost track of my thought there because what I'm really trying to say is more of a, yeah, it's taboo to be like, hey, why did you say what you said? Because you kind of just said it, and there's a lot you can do with that statement, but
Yeah.
you need to actually choose a perspective to have, or else we can't really talk. Like I don't know how to respond.
Yeah, I have many places I could take that, and Diara has been offering like a lot of great
Right, the R has
insight
been
and thoughts,
cooking.
just cooking in the chat. And one of the things that Diara mentioned is like white supremacist
Oh,
culture,
I'll bring that
right?
back up.
I mean, that one, yeah, that comment was cooking as well, because I have thoughts on Blue Sky or whatever. But this idea that I'm saying something because it's the correct thing, and I'm only about what is true and what is good. um this is something that is very situated in like with, like, if not white supremacy overtly, certainly like Western philosophy, which has been, carried out in ways to facilitate white supremacist systems, right? Like the ways that enlightenment thinking have been instrumentalized to carry out colonialism, colonization, capitalism, genocide, right? And I mean that in a sense of, when we talk about indigenous cultures and their approaches to um, spirituality and their approaches to meaning, obviously there's a huge vastness of that we can't get at because there's so many different indigenous cultures. Indigenous is a very umbrella term, but to be a little less nuanced, there are, because of those
Kunkin
various
Dastner in the chat.
approaches.
Hey,
Oh,
Kunkin,
Kunkin Dassner, what's up?
what's good? Oh my god,
It's been,
I feel like the pretty's good on the ball.
yeah. um that the thing that we notice, for instance, is that there are different approaches made to like, whose role is what, and discovering your
Mm,
role, discovering your life path, your life way, where you fit into the society. um and that there's not an overt sense of individual correctness so much as there is an approach to understanding relational things in society. I'm getting very abstract. What I'm trying to say is that, like, um we don't think relationally. We don't think when I say something, there's an audience for it, and so what I say has an impact on them, and so I should think about what that impact would be.
you know what's so sad about that though? I'm sorry because I don't know if y'all saw my face when you said that. Going back to Gen Z might be cooked. I don't know if that's we don't have to digress on that point. Like still finish your thought, but I'm like, it might be the issue right there when you said
Well,
that like I and that could be also me being a creator, obviously, and like we're weird people by design. But I do wonder to the amount of how much people really do, even in their day to day life. I immediately I'm thinking of the unalive discourse, right? Like
right,
grape discourse, like
right.
start in small ways, maybe even unknowingly, like trying to find audiences for, or like trying not to alienate audiences in their own interpersonal conversations. Um, in a way that's more like than just like being friendly or something.
I feel like, yeah, Gen Z. Well, I wouldn't say Gen Z is cooked, because I do think there's a lot of things that Gen Z tackles, that they have a unique sort of relationship with, and changes that are happening. I do think Gen Z, one of the foremost things Gen Z faces is, um, how to deal with audience and communication in this age, right? You have been brought up in a social media age. Your idea of how to communicate and of what an audience does is tempered by corporate algorithms. It's tempered
Mm-hmm.
by what flies on Twitter, what gets you likes on TikTok and on YouTube, right? And there has still not yet quite been that sort of revolution of relational thinking. Um, there's still this desperate attempt to wrest individualism from collectivism and see these things as like, um either ors, and see these things as like and more so attempting to constantly be individually correct. And there's not much glamour or attention brought towards, like, how am I fitting with the environment I'm around? How am I fitting in? How am I contributing to some type of group or some type of team?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that that's the result of neoliberalism. I think that that's the result of, decades of media and art and education sort of imprinting that on us, imprinting the need to distinguish, to make ourselves reflect to others that we are distinguished, we are unique, we are in some way above them. And this permeates like leftist spaces and lib spaces too, because there's even though there is an attempt at trying to think of the world in a way to be more collectively liberating, to try to bring collective liberation in different ways, we're still stuck in that worldview, though, of, for instance, the world is bad because everybody's stupid. Everybody else, there's just too many dumb people. There's too many dumb people, and I'm a smart person,
Right.
you know? And we're
I
stuck in that thought loop
I
instead of
read
thinking,
Hegel
how do I
and understood
communicate
it.
them? Yeah.
Right. Um.
Yeah.
Hold on. I want to get to some of these comments.
Yeah, sure.
But dang, you said so much good shit.
Oh,
Okay. Nah. I think I'm gonna
I've
get.
got about 15 minutes just
I
to
know. Yeah. I
do it.
literally was checking my time, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull this off. But I want
Yeah,
to get this.
Kyle knows.
Like we literally talked about this during like when we were setting this up. Like, man, we're two video essays. We're two yappers. This is no. And then I still
That's what we
said,
do.
you said how much time do you need? I said an hour's fine.
An hour.
What are we
Yeah.
gonna talk about? Okay, so first thing I want to. Okay, let's put this up. Do we think Gen Z is treating their real life world relationships like an audience? Like, are they learning the wrong things from the internet? Okay, yeah. So I start this because I don't know if how many like nerd fighters are in the crowd that still watch John and Hank Green's Vlog Brothers, but Hank Green's video yesterday was responding to actually Tuesday's video that we watched on Tuesday on live called like "Am I Cigarettes?" And I put it on because Elliot, I will use you as the audience surrogate. John's video was basically about like, hey, like by making content, like content is addicting. I make content. Am I cigarettes? Right. But at the end, he was like, I don't have an answer to that. Classic John. And like basically was like, hey, do you have an answer? And if I could get the screen share to be working, we would be watching that video right now, to be honest with you, because it's in such great dialogue with your video. But the long and the short of it from Hank's perspective was like, you're not, I think the title was like, you're not addicted to content, you're starving for information. Right. Because like content is not bad inherently. Nicotine is like inherently non-positive.
Right.
Like at least in the fact that
Inherently
like
negative.
you can't, right, you can't do, you don't need it. Right. It's only like cigarettes only exist to deliver nicotine. Vapes only exist to deliver, only exist to deliver nicotine, and you only want nicotine for nicotine, not for other things, really.
Right.
Content, on the other hand, is like food, right? Like, I just had a Cool Wrap sandwich, like straight from Chick-fil-A. It hit. Now, like, I've had worse food, but that could have been better food, because for dinner yesterday, I made lamb. Like, but it's both food. It's about the type of food that we get, and I think to Duncan's question, to say is the youth learning the wrong things from the internet just misses the point, because like the point is we don't know there's too many things to learn on the internet. The problem is the scale of things there are to know on the internet, and that in and of itself was not how our operating system was meant to be. We were not meant to have access to all the information, simply the desire to get more information. Because no one, like our bodies never thought like there'd be a way to have the entire library of Alexandria at your fingertips. Like you think of like very funny but like simple things of when like your older cousins or whatever might say, in the 80s or early 90s, if I needed to know a question, like I would just ask somebody and we might talk about it for an hour, and if we couldn't find it out, we might just not know. We might just we might have a simplified view of the events, that just enough for us to have a conversation, which is all we wanted to do anyway. And like I think we don't, it's weird to explain, right? But like I don't know if we can even have those type of conversations anymore. But that's me being humorous, because at the same time I'm talking here with Elliot, Fatima Turban cooking her in the chat. Like this wouldn't be able to happen without the internet, without social media.
Yeah.
So like it's often more the problem that we refuse to name the actual specific problems with our relationship with social media, which is with the way that we allow an incentivized model of addiction to be put upon us in order to get free access and like there's nothing that we can do about that due to the infrastructure of capitalism. Like that's what makes us feel like cigarettes. The fact that they're making it, and I think Hank says that as well. Like content is food, but Twitter specializes in making ramen.
Right.
Instagram is trying to make the best fucking Starburst jelly beans. Actually, nah, the Arizona jelly beans. Have y'all ever had those? Literal fentanyl in the bitches. But they're specializing how to make the best low calorie addicted food, and
Right.
we're all forced to be like, yeah, there's no way. Wow, shout out Zoran, because you know
So
and in a lot of places we're being told that it's crazy to have a city owned grocery store, or it's crazy to have a community owned grocery store where people actually give the food out. I'm stretching this metaphor, I'm aware, but you guys are nuanced and smart. You guys see where I'm going.
yeah,
uh
I
like yeah.
I'm glad you
Also,
brought up
is
Zora.
everybody is that just me, or is Elliot's mic good on everybody's end? It sounds like super buzzy.
Is my mic okay? Is my mic okay? Let me make sure. I'm trying to hear it on the regular stream. Check, 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 check. I think my mic sounded okay when I heard it in the thing, but
Okay, Chow will let me know. Just keep going.
yeah, all right. I'm glad you brought up Zoran. I think that in this instance, I think when it comes to the idea of what the internet is teaching us, I think one of the things that gets lost is again like this idea of what goals are, what goals you have, and how you're going to accomplish them, and what goals like you want to be a part of helping to accomplish, and what your position is in accomplishing that goal. So like what what are you trying, like if you're on, what team are you on and what position are you playing? And I saw some interesting tweets by Mike from PA, who does some online content as well, talking about just kind of how leftists are disagreeing and grappling with certain positions that Zoran Mamdani has taken, particularly about policing and about Palestine with regards to this campaign. Now, I think a lot of people will do the kind of dismissive, like when it comes to Zoran saying, he's not going to defund the police. He says he's going to sort of keep the police budget at where it is and work to sort of change the nature of what police do in the city by uh, putting a budget towards public safety that's nonviolent. And then towards Palestine, he's said, like, he's constantly been asked, like, does Israel have the right to exist? And he said it has the right to exist as a state with equal rights. So he's made some sort of rhetorical kind of concessions to more left leaning but centrist sort of viewpoints. And a lot of people are sort of hostile to that in a way that um, I think people lose sight of the fact that he is trying to accomplish a specific thing. Um, I think basically that we're very used to just being like, well, I think a thing because it sounds good, it sounds correct. I'm just going to say it as it is. Anybody who doesn't get it, they're the ops. Anybody who agrees with me, like, cool.
Right.
And maybe if your position is to shape discourse in a specific way, there's an onus on you to say things that are more radical. Like you and I were video
Hmm.
essayists, so we can put forth police abolitionism ideas in much more straightforward ways and then try to just help people understand them in different ways, right? It's our job to not necessarily filter ourselves very much, or not necessarily to try to speak to all these different audiences. We have specific audiences we're trying to speak to. We're going to say things like to try to push people in a certain direction.
There's almost like like because we speak so much of systems and like things being systemic, and like it almost unintentionally breeds like a total anti-system approach, when like there's also plenty of benefit in the self-awareness that like we exist within a cultural ecosystem which has system in the name and a cycle because I really like what you're saying about the idea that like ultimately I can't, and this is like a sort of a side thing of which like there's always this little small sort of discourse about how can the left talk to, honestly, like they might as well call it the urban crowd, right? Like how do we talk to how do we talk to people that watch Love Island? And it's like that's not actually how it works, is it? Right? Like
Right.
technically, we talk to people who or we are eggheads who really like to delve into books or really like to go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole that talk to a population that's like 15% are like us, and then 85% are people that like hearing people that say things like that, so that they can summarize what we say, and then all their friends probably watch more Love Island or like consume podcasts or live streams. It's not our job to like overly moderate our language because
Yeah.
our audience will take what it needs. It'll take the nuance that it needs for it to work where it wants to be applied.
Yeah, and we're not our job isn't, and I guess this is my last point, sort of, is like our
Okay, and
job.
then I got one more question for you before we
Oh,
go.
perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Our job is not to be loved and approved unanimously. Some of
Mm,
us have different positions. Some of us are like in a position where you're trying to build a huge audience, a huge tent. Um, I would love to build a bigger audience and a bigger tent, but I also have to take certain stance. I also have to sometimes be a little controversial. Sometimes for the very fact that I know that when I take this stand, it might be a little polarizing at first, but it's going to have an impact that's greater than if I just keep trying to sort of minutely, subtly hint at a certain viewpoint or try to mealy mouth my way through it. Like a big example that rings true for my experience is, and this came up in sort of in related terms in my video about nuance. Um, so when October 7th happened, I posted multiple times on my community posts about it. Um, and sorry, I'm getting a little distracted because there's a frog in my window. Um, it's a very cute frog. I'm gonna see if I can. No, I don't think it can show. Um, I posted multiple times at first about like Palestinian liberation and the pretty like in the days after it had happened. I had posted about resistance, positively, and I got a lot of pushback from what it seemed to be mostly like randoms, right?
mhm.
People showing up who are also just like, I thought leftism was about peace, that as well as like all the other good stuff, right? I also, frankly, like I got some shtick, I got some pushback a little bit behind the scenes as well, um, and I knew that this was a situation where I needed to be a little bit controversial and just say what it was.
Right.
Like this was a time period where it was like, okay, I know this is going to age well. I'm not going to sit here and speak from both sides of my mouth and kind of be like, well, if there could just be a peaceful thing between Israel and Palestine and the conflict, right?
Not when you know
Now when I
like
know, like,
how you stand, yeah, how you feel on it, and how it's going to look in the future.
exactly.
Yeah.
I felt very confident about that. And I felt also very confident that, like, if I start saying things here, like, hey, no, um, we need to be centering this on the act on colonization and settler colonialism. We need to be centering this on like resistance towards that. We don't need to be making like equivocations. We don't need to be pretending that this is some sort of two-sided conflict when it's really a genocide, right? I mean, at that time it was pre-Gaza genocide, but it was we're talking about settler colonialism in Palestine. Um, I knew that if I start saying those things, other people will see me, and maybe somebody else who kind of feels like saying what I'm saying but isn't necessarily feeling comfortable yet will be like, well, if
3% rule.
Elliot's saying it, maybe I can
Mm.
say it. And maybe somebody who's just kind of like, I don't really know what's going on can be like, well, oh, Elliot's saying this. That's interesting. And so months later, it was pretty clear that like, okay, that was a momentary thing, and what I was saying is really lasting. Um, but those are examples of times when, for me in my position, I had to try to shape discourse. I had to try to shape discourse, and I had to try to say things as they are, as I see it.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I know you got to go. This is my last question to wrap it all up,
Yeah.
because it was truly, and I think that's what I texted you saying, like, this is what I really wanted to know as you were writing it. Like, speaking of audience, like, who do you think this nuance discourse, or this nuance moderation is for? Is it for the consumers in the way they react and relate and promote what they're consuming, or do you believe it might be more on the creators to sort of start to take more responsibility in shaping the amount, or the amount of the time they go for understanding versus when they go for comprehensiveness?
So you're asking in terms of nuance moderation,
Yeah,
like
like sort of to the point of your video of like we didn't get to get into the nuance trap, but like this idea of being overly in love with nuance. I As I was watching it, like I sort of could hear two different arguments, or two different types of arguments, right? In that, like, the reason why we're kind of in peak nuance, in a peak nuance era, is because you go on Twitter and there's so many people who are seeing a piece of media and then saying, but this, but this, but this.
right.
So like in one place, it's a consumer who is sometimes using nuance as a cudgel when we could be doing a greater solidarity building by maybe not worrying about that so much. But
Right.
then on the other side, you also have creators who also, or really as a creator, right? Who, like, we're video essayists, like we literally milk 2 to 3 hours out of nuance. But a person may say, to what end? If we could have done it in shorter time and made it
Yeah.
more palatable, more shareable, more engageable.
Yeah, I think my big conclusion when it comes to that is that we need to stop trying to be nuanced. We need to try to be, in this case specifically as video essayists, we need to focus on being accurate. We need to focus on being insightful. We need to focus on being inciting. We need to focus on getting people to do things, getting people to think differently. We shouldn't try to be nuanced. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
videos on YouTube that people like will be in the same space that I'm in, that we're in, and they'll be basically like, "This is 2 hours, 3 hours." And of a deep dive on this, and then the conclusion is like, well, so it's kind of complicated, and there's just no point in that
You
existing.
don't say.
There's no point in that existing other than like the AdSense revenue you can get. But when I, try to do, like, I did a 2.5 hour video about Japan, about Imperial Japan, and as nuanced as I got in that video, I tried to make sure that that nuance served a purpose, and I tried to make sure that by the conclusion, I had a certain point that I was making, which is that, like, when we talk, in that case, when we talk about Japan and imperialism, we need to stop centering it on this idea of Japan as this deceiver using soft power to
Mm-hmm.
convince us of something, and we need to start looking at Japan as an after effect of colonialism, as a part of American colonial hegemony, and it's soft power emerging from that as well. Right. We need to focus when we talk about Japan on the world stage. We really need to be talking about the US. And that was my point. Now, there's a lot of nuance there because there's a lot of different. I just try to get into a lot of details about history,
But I get your point, and
but I
like
have a point.
I have a feeling, and I agree with your point, and like that's the start of everything. It's
Yeah. And then the nuance is there because it's like, this stuff is really interesting. Like,
mm-hmm.
I'm not just putting stuff in there because I'm like, and this is more detail, and this is more detail. It's there because it's like, you should know about this particular, who got executed and who didn't at the war trials, at the war crime trials, right? So I'll get into a little bit of a storytelling about who it was and who it wasn't, right? So I'm not even looking at it strictly as like, okay, and here's the nuance. I'm looking at it strictly as like,
You're
this is good to know. This is good to
you're
know.
literally following your curiosity.
Yeah, following your curiosity is a great way
Yeah,
to put it.
that's facts. All right, Elliot, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation. Um, haters will say we reach dangerous levels of nuance at certain times, but like honestly, I think we were just speaking straight facts.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
I think we were communicating with the chat. Actually, yes, by how how amazingly engaged the chat was today. Like, thank you, chat. Give it up for yourselves. That's how I know we actually had the adequate amount of nuance, because these ideas are at least getting through to the
Yeah.
people that watch us, and I hope you guys, especially Diara, because I think you said you were the 85% of people that just like to watch the smart people like us, and then we need you to give the spark notes to your friends. Don't let them use ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And
another
and
stream.
and this is again like, yeah, the conversation being larger than just us.
All right, we're gonna end it off here.
Thank you, Tayo.
Thank you. I'm gonna close you out and then talk to my fans.
All right, bye.
Everybody say bye to Elliot. Boom. Okay. I know how to do that one. I know how to take them off the screen. Dark eugenics. Wait, see now why would you wait for Elliot to lead to start saying something super interesting? I just consider it. Oh, okay. But yeah, yeah, we don't need dark eugenics. All right, guys. This has been the Empathy Hour. This will go up on the new side channel, Human. Let y'all. I'm gonna show y'all that before we leave. Is that true? Yeah. All Empathy Hours are gonna go on the side channel. I'm sorry I couldn't figure out how to do the screen share. Unfortunately, Restream is racist. I don't know. I got this. I don't know why the hell I thought that would pop up. Bring in the sources. Boom. Okay. New channel. I started the side channel. Follow that shit. Human interest. We already got some videos up for you. We have a secret Empathy Hour episode. I'm not. I only got to do restreams for like Empathy Hour for like the interviews, but like on Tuesday when we back on the whatchamacallit, when we back on OBS, I can get my soundboard back. But we already got some shit with FD Signifier. Talk about dad rap. This was a Patreon exclusive, but just for y'all, I put it on side channel mostly so y'all can run up the numbers, please. Please give me that FD Simi package. And then some shit on and then this is a recap of Tuesday stream. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for all the guys that came. Like I feel like we almost hit like 30 or whatever. I will see you guys on Tuesday. You guys have a good rest of your weekend. And as always, hold up, you got to see my face when I say this, okay? And as always, be kind.